All right, Alois. Next, we have Li Jian coming on. Before we introduce our second moderator of the day, here are some real-time poll results from What's a Realistic Year for Asia to Achieve Net Zero. It shows nearly 50% of you voting for 2050. So coming up next, Zhao Lijian is China Director of Carbon Trust. He manages the Carbon Trust China office and oversees all of its activities in China, including energy efficiency, green finance, offshore wind, corporate advisory services, and product carbon footprinting. Li Jian joined the Carbon Trust from the Energy Foundation China, where he was the director of the Environmental Management Program. Prior to this, he was a program officer for environment at the Asia Foundation and consultant auditor at Sinosphere. Li Jian also holds a Master of Science in Environmental Sciences, Policy, and Management from the International Institute for Industrial Environmental Economics, Lund University, University of Manchester, and Central European University. He holds a Bachelor of Philosophy from Peking University. He's a visiting scholar at China Energy Group of Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and a lead fellow. He'll be presenting a 10-minute presentation, followed by a 35-minute panel discussion on demonstrating action and providing transparency on the route to net zero, featuring expert panelists from Nestle, LG Korea, Tetra Pak China, CSCA. Let's welcome Li Jian.
Thank you, Wen. Thank you very much. Everyone, welcome to this session on demonstrating action and providing transparency on the route to net zero. I will first to deliver a presentation to set the scene. Then we will move to the panel discussion. We have a great panel. Let me to share my screen. Okay, yeah. So for this session, our topic is the demonstrating action and providing transparency. There are many ways to do this. Corporates can publish their sustainability report or answer questions in the CDP questionnaire. All this information is part of the demonstrating action and providing transparency. But today I'm going to discuss the assurance and certification role for this, because assurance and the certification will make this information more credible. Why assurance and the certification? There are many benefits, including cost savings, facilitating compliance, and also improving reputation. Another side of this is communicating climate action is a good opportunity for brand promotion, but also there's also risk for greenwashing, and assurance and certification could to a large extent to avoid greenwashing. These are the examples of assurance and certification. I use the Carbon Trust as an example. So we have organizational level certification, products level, supply chain level, and climate finance, such as green bonds. And overall, the approach is measure, manage, reduce, and certify. And today I'm going to dive into two certification schemes. One is the product's carbon footprint, and the other one is the carbon neutral certification. So for the product footprinting certification, it's important to do this because it covers all the life cycle emissions of one product. Around 10 years ago, Carbon Trust developed the PAS 2050 standard. That's a standard to calculate the life cycle emissions, carbon emissions for a product. And there's also ISO standard for this. And we also developed a carbon label to work together with this standard and to demonstrate the information. Now many products are using carbon labels to communicate with consumers. you can see that from food to the phones to beverage, different types of products. Yeah. And we have been conducting consumer surveys in the past several years. And you can see that 2/3 of consumers support carbon labeling on products, and 64% of consumers likely to think positively about a brand if it has a footprinting label. Our carbon label also have some evolution. In the beginning, in the early days, it's just showing, the amount of carbon emissions, like for example, 5 kilograms of CO2 emission, and then some consumers may not understand clearly what does that mean. So we also improved that and developed new carbon labels, including just the CO2 measured, and also if a product, if this year it emits like a 5 kilogram carbon, and in the next year it just emits 4 kilograms, then we can issue like a reducing CO2 to demonstrate their actions. And if a product also offset its residue emissions, then we can provide the carbon neutral label. We also developed the reducing CO2 and the carbon neutral packaging labels because sometimes the display on the packaging may mislead the consumers to think about the whole product as a carbon neutral or reducing carbon if it's just for the packaging. So it's clearly to show the consumers it's just about the packaging to communicate the correct information. These are some examples. So we worked with LG Electronics, and we have a panelist, Mr. Lee, may discuss further. I won't go into the details. Like Samsung smartphones have been using our carbon label for several years. And recently, Kia, there's the electric vehicle. The whole vehicle got the carbon measured label. One interesting element is the e-commerce platform what they can play. So last year, Amazon initiated the climate pledge friendly system to encourage the climate friendly products in their online shopping system. And our carbon label was one of them recognized. And you can search these products under the climate pledge friendly products. Yeah. Next, I'm going to discuss about the carbon neutral certification, because this is also getting more and more popular. Yeah, for the carbon neutral certification, the most reputable and recognized standards is PAS 2060, and the ISO is still in the process of developing a standard. And the carbon neutral certification can be given to the organization, to a product, and to event. And the overall process is you do footprinting for that organization, product, or event, and then you reduce emission. And for the rest of the emissions, you purchase offsets, and then you go to a third-party certifier to get a certification. These are also some examples, like the Bentley Motors, their organization, their headquarter factory got the carbon neutral certification. The Evan Water got the product level carbon neutral certification. And the Carbon Zero, this event, they also got the carbon neutral certification. Finally, I have some recommendations for the transparency. In the interest of time, I won't go into the detail of every one of them, but overall, I think the recommendation is to communicate clearly and specifically about the scope, about the definition of your action. Yeah, and also don't overclaim to make clear in the communications. These are the overall recommendation, and this will avoid the greenwashing issue. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. I hope this provides some useful background for the audience. Now, maybe we can move to the panel discussion. Yeah, today we have a great panel lineup, and yeah, we have Mr. Qi Zhang from Nestle China, Mr. Sangyun Mak Lee from LG Electronics in Korea, Teresa Tan from Tetra Pak APAC, and Mr. Tianan Li from CSCA. So firstly, may I ask each panelist to introduce themselves briefly? First, Mr. Zhang from Nestle China.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Zhang Qi from Nestle China. I'm in charge of sustainability of Nestle in Greater China region. So my key responsibility is to ensure the delivery of all the Nestle Group sustainability commitments in China through flagship initiatives and stakeholder collaboration. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Zhang. Next, we invite Mr. Lee from LG Korea.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Sang-Ryung Lee of LG Electronics from Korea. Yeah, I'm in charge of global environmental regulations and also the environmental certification or such kind of eco-friendly activities in LG Electronics. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we invite Ms. Tan from Tetra Pak.
Thank you, Li Chen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Teresa Tan from Tetra Pak. I have dual roles. So I have a functional role at market in charge of Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Indonesia when it comes to collections and recycling and other legislation-related agenda for these 4 markets. And in parallel to that, I also hold a responsibility in driving the sustainability transformation agenda for Tetra Pak Asia Pacific. Nice to meet everyone online. Thank you.
Thank you. Then lastly, Mr. Tianan Li from the China Standard Conformity Assessment.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Tianan Li from China CSCA. CSCA is a certification body. We engage in all kinds of certification programs, including management system, product and service certification. But also we do a lot of research and evaluation for energy saving and carbon emission things. So we are I'm very happy to join this section discussion. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you all for your introduction. And then, next. Okay, so for the first question, to the 3 panelists from the corporates, can you introduce a success story or case of your company to demonstrate action and provide transparency on sustainability or net zero transition? It could be using certification and labeling to show the action, or other means of cases. So this question is for Mr. Qi Zhang and Mr. Li and Ms. Tan from the three corporates. So first, Mr. Qi Zhang, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Li Jian. So for Nestle, I can give two examples. The first one is the calculation of Nestle's greenhouse gas emission baseline. So normally we use a very internationally recognized standard for calculation, and at the same time we engage with industry leading agencies like South Pole or Carbon Trust. So when we publish that our 2018 greenhouse gas emission baseline is 92 million tons, it's already verified and certified by international recognized standard and by leading agency. Another example is carbon neutrality. So we have committed to reach carbon neutrality for Nespresso brand, for example, by 2022, and also other brands. For this kind of carbon neutral initiative, we use the same approach. First, we adopt the recognized standard, no matter it is ISO 14067 or PAS 2050, etc. Or for certification part, it's PAS 2060. This is the first thing. And the second thing is we engage the leading agency. Yeah, for example, Nespresso France, as I understand, they reached carbon neutral already through the certification of Carbon Trust. In China, we are also engaging with Carbon Trust China office for one of the brands. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zhang. And it's in addition to demonstrating the credibility of the information, the assurance and the certification can also based on the common standards, so that different types of products or actions have a common ground for comparison and benchmarking. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zhang. And next to Mr. Li from LG, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy to our story with Carbon Trust, a key partner of our net zero mission at this webinar. We, LG Electronics, recently announced our participation as the first Korean company in the global campaign, Business Ambition per 1.5 degree, to achieve net zero society. In particular, we established a science-based target focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, not only in the scope 1 and 2, also emissions generated when sales products are used. We are making every effort to continuously develop energy efficient technologies and apply them to actual products to minimize greenhouse gas emissions when they are used, which accounts for the biggest portion of greenhouse gas emissions within the whole life cycle of products. Also, LG Electronics aims to strengthen the competence of our people, such as training experts in the SA field, to exactly calculate and systematically analyze greenhouse gas emissions in the entire life cycle of sales product, from development, production, transportation, use, and disposal. In line with these efforts, we acquired a carbon reduction certification from Carbon Trust in our TV product for the first time in 2011. For the past 10 years, we have expanded and acquired Carbon Trust certification for major new products such as water purifiers, clothing stylers, cordless vacuum cleaners, washing machine, dishwashers, refrigerators, and so on. Yeah. Even in the first quarter of this year, we are actively pursuing certification for new products, aiming to obtain certification within the year. Additionally, we are diversifying the types of certification it acquires from the Carbon Trust, not just carbon label, but also water label. We, LG Electronics, put great emphasis on contributing to society by continuously reducing energy consumption, by improving the efficiency of sales products so that consumers can reduce greenhouse gas emissions when using them. Hence, LG Electronics will continue to develop eco-friendly products and services and expand carbon footprint certification by utilizing LG Electronics' innovative technology and outstanding capabilities to realize carbon neutrality and a circular economy for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for the comprehensive information. Next, I'm going to ask Ms. Tan from Tetra Pak to share your story or case.
Okay, thank you, Li Qian. Well, I guess everyone knows that climate change is now generally agreed as the issue that requires the highest attention from legislators, from consumers, and also for companies. And it has also set a profound impact on the complex infrastructure of the food and beverage industry. So at Tetra Pak, we are committed to a circular economy that also has a low carbon focus, one that takes into account not just recycling and reuse, but also the carbon impact of manufacturing, and particularly in terms of raw material. So if I can just share an example, say for example, if you look at a Tetra Pak carton package today, it is already having a very strong starting point because it is made primarily using paper, which is a renewable resource. So it has relatively lower carbon footprint and is fully recyclable. So starting with the responsible sourcing, we are working with different certification bodies to ensure that the highest standards of responsible sourcing principles is also demonstrated in terms of our actions and also provide transparency. If I can just call out one example, using plant-based renewable materials, for example, because that takes up carbon dioxide as they grow and are reused and recycled. So it is a significant part of our climate strategy. That is why way back in 2015, we launched the Tetra Rex plant-based, which is the world's first and still is the only fully renewable beverage carton. It is Forest Stewardship Council certified and is entirely made of paperboard from responsibly managed forests and other control sources, and Bonsucro certified plant-based plastics as well. So switching from fossil plastics to a plant-based plastic in making this package greatly reduced its carbon emission by as much as 31%, for example, in this case. And this is according to a calculation model certified by the Carbon Trust. This model, which is being named the Carbon Calculator, is also made available on our corporate website, where consumers and brand owners can find out the cradle-to-grade data for each packaging format supplied by Tetra Pak. So this is a great examples of transparency and also sharing verified data, which has been certified by Carbon Trust as capable of generating a carbon footprint in compliance with PAS 2050, ISO 14044, and ISO 14067. The other example is in terms of achieving carbon neutrality. So Tetra Pak has embarked on a pilot program in 2020 in partnership with the Carbon Trust, and becoming the first packaging company to enable customers to label their packages as carbon neutral according to the International PAS 2060 standard. And our collaboration with Carbon Trust is part of a carbon neutral pilot program that has just been launched in Europe. And the goal of this program is to remove all carbon impact from the entire life cycle of the carton. And since May 2020, we have been launching carbon neutral labeled packages in several markets across Europe, Central America, including Spain, the Netherlands, and the Baltics. And to share a very, very recent example, our dairy customer, Lee Strand, became the first in Ireland to launch a fresh milk product in a carbon neutral labeled package, where we team up with Carbon Trust to help make this possible through the carbon neutral program. So I guess all in all, I believe that certification and labeling serve three very important purposes. Number one, it provides companies with a solid and credible platform to take actions and motivate to make progress in strengthening environmental credentials and performances. And so secondly, for our customers who are the brand owners, we also recognize the importance of helping our customers to respond to consumer needs and reinforce their commitment to protect the environment. And certification and labeling allows brands to communicate with consumers in a very credible manner. And lastly, it also helps consumers to make informed purchase decisions that meets their desire to do good for the environment. Thank you. Back to you, Li Qian.
Thank you, Ms. Tan. So my next question is to Mr. Tianan Li from CSCA. Before I ask this question, I also want to share one information, is that in my previous slides, we introduced a lot of cases in Korea. That's also because we have a partner working in Korea to develop the carbon trust product labels and certifications. And now we are developing a partnership with the CSCA to offer these services in China. So, Mr. Li, my question to you is the CSCA has cooperated with many international certification partners in China. Can you introduce a success story of an international certification or label scheme in China?
Okay, thank you, Li Jian. Yeah, first of all, I want to say that, as we all know that China has already officially committed to the carbon emission in we call 3060. That means in the year 2030, China will reach the carbon peak, and the year 2060 will reach the carbon neutralization. So regarding this point, right now China, the government in all level and the relevant enterprises are making efforts around these goals. Meanwhile, just know that in China, the power generation and heating sector is the first sector, and the industry is the second sector regarding this CO2 emission. So regarding this point, I'm sure that relevant standards and the certification program will be widely adopted and used in China. Just Li Jian mentioned, CSCA has rich experience with the cooperation with the international standard and the certification scheme holders. We promote like sustainable development for agriculture sector. We work with Reinforcement Alliance for nearly 10 years to promote relevant certification schemes in China. So for our experience, that means CSCA with the local experience, we know the China market, and our international partners, they know with the technical and the know-how and the relevant standards and even successful certification schemes. So we can see with this kind of cooperation, we hand in hand, we can do better to localize the relevant international standards and certification scheme in China. So yes, we with many very deep cooperation, deep discussion, we got final consensus with Carbon Trust to sign the agreement to jointly promote like carbon footprint and carbon neutral regularization certification scheme in China. So with the big market, with strong capacity from CSCA, with strong technology from Carbon Trust, I'm sure we will have a bright future to localize the relevant standards and the certification schemes in China to promote the relevant standard and certification schemes in China. That's my my point, Li Jie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Li. Then my second question to the panel for the three panelists from the corporates is thank you for sharing your cases and the stories. And during your sustainability journey, as you described, what challenges did you encounter, and how did you overcome these challenges? So this same question to three panelists from the corporates. First, again, Mr. Qi Zhang from Nestle, China.
Hello. So for Nestle, for a food company, I think our biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenge is the diverse value chain. So yeah, it covers agricultural raw materials, packaging, manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, and the consumer consumption and end of life of packaging, etc. The whole value chain. So it's very diverse. We need to tackle all of them to reach our net zero pledge. So to tackle this challenge, internally, we established a task force, a steering committee with 5 task forces. Each task force is targeting a specific topic. For example, packaging. One of them is for packaging. One of them is for manufacturing and logistics, something like that. And externally, we collaborate with all the stakeholders to jointly solve the issue. For example, we partnered with Tsinghua University. In Tsinghua, there's an X Lab. So we encourage the students and the teachers to develop sustainable packaging solutions to jointly solve the plastic packaging waste. So this is the first challenge, the value chain. The second big challenge is the data. Yeah, just because it touches so many life cycle stages, so the data transparency is a key. So one thing is it's like what I just described. We make sure that we use the existing internationally recognized standards for any claiming. For example, carbon neutrality, etc. And the second thing we are doing is to advocate, is for advocacy. That means we must ensure that there is a enabling policy to encouraging the harmonized standardization for transparency. For example, currently we have prioritized our advocacy work to several things. One of them is carbon removal, that means insetting and offsetting, etc. Another thing is environmental claim. For example, for every 100 gram of product, what is the greenhouse gas emission across the value chain, etc. We think the advocacy for national standard and even international standard is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Yeah, I think the data issue you mentioned is a common challenge. Now, as especially in the China market, we can see that because of the government's commitment to the carbon neutrality, a lot of companies are already starting to do more footprinting calculation. And with this, I think more and more data will be available as everyone is starting to calculate the data. Yeah. So now we move to Mr. Lee from LG Electronics.
Hello again. Yeah. As explained earlier, LG Electronics has acquired carbon footprint waiver from the Carbon Trust for a lot of products for the past 10 years, with LCD TV being its first. Receiving multiple certifications every year, it was a huge challenge for the LG Electronics to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions generated in the entire process of production, distribution, use, and disposal, each certified product according to the strict standards of PAS 2050, and submit the report to the Carbon Trust. As the number of Carbon Trust certified products continue to increase, we are the first in the industry to implement own process, so-called the LG Electronics internal audit process, in consideration of first, increasing the efficiency of certification process, second, upgrading the management system, third, last, producing mid to long-term eco-friendly product and strategy. Also, we participate the training program from the Carbon Trust for our internal personnel on a regular basis, educate internal assessors, and embed the internal audit process. By checking the report to be submitted through the internal assessor before the Carbon Trust main audit voluntarily, it greatly contributes to improving the reliability of the report submitted to the Carbon Trust and shortening the certification process. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Yeah, I think you mentioned one important element is to develop the internal management system, connected with the external certification schemes. And it's also helpful for the internal management. Yeah, that's very good experience. Yeah. Now we move to Ms. Tan from Tetra Pak.
Thank you, Li Qian. Well, when it comes to sustainability and climate action, it's not something new to Tetra Pak. In fact, back in 2010, we have established our climate baseline across the value chain and have set the goal of capping our 2020 impact across the value chain at 2010 levels, regardless of business growth. And in 2019, despite the growth in production, we have achieved 11% reduction in carbon footprint. And since June 2020, we have also announced our commitment to reach net zero greenhouse gas emission in our own operation by 2030, and with an ambition to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emission for the entire value chain by 2050. I think some of the challenges that have been mentioned by our fellow panelists is also relevant to Tetra Pak. For example, it's a very complex value chain, also about data and also about internal engagement in terms of our teams, working towards these goals. But in terms of achieving these climate goals, we see that there are 4 main areas that we are able to overcome some of these challenges, especially in terms of the complexity of the value chain, because it covers all the way from raw material to transportation, distribution, consumption, and end of life. So firstly, I think what we are actually working on a lot in terms of addressing the climate action is about lowering energy-related emission. This is through energy conservation, improvements in energy efficiency, for example, installing site solar PV, purchasing renewable energy. So all these are examples of what we are trying to embark on, and also have also committed to the RE100 initiative, so that we also set standards in terms of all these external certification or assessment platform that will lend credibility to the work that we are doing. I think secondly, we'll be partnering with suppliers and other stakeholders. So we also realize that it's very important to work with different parties with different expertise. For example, working with Carbon Trust, which provides us with the expertise when it comes to working on our climate reporting, working on our climate assessment, and all that will be actually very, very important to help us to make sure that we are actually progressing positively and we're able to communicate this positive progress externally. The third area is to, of course, accelerate the development of low carbon circular packaging. So Tetra Pak, we are in the business of providing processing and packaging solutions to the food and beverage industry. So a step change in investment level in sustainable innovation can help us to realize our ambition towards a fully recyclable package, for example, made solely from renewable or recycled material, as well as also our processing and packaging lines with a minimum carbon footprint. And the last one actually is really about not forgetting the end of the value chain, which is the recyclability. So all these, I think, put together are some of the vision that we have, that all beverage carton will be of a low carbon impact and also fitting to a low carbon circular economy in the future. Thank you. Back to you, Li Jian.
Thank you, Ms. Tan. Yeah, that's very encouraging. Yeah, for your goals. And lastly, for the question to Mr. Li from CSCA, what are the opportunities and the challenges to carbon-related certification and labeling work in China market? Because you described in the past a lot of sustainability-related certifications, but as I understand, there are not many carbon-related certification yet in the China market.
Yeah, one hand, China with a big market for promote the carbon related certification program. But based on our understanding and the experience, I think the 3 key points need to be take more attention to do this work. The one is how to localize this international practice, especially international standard and the certification program in China. I mean, localize not only translation, we need to align with China situation to interpret our criteria, our requirements to suit with China situation. I said this is the big challenge. If we cannot do this, we cannot promote the relevant standard and the certification scheme in China. I think this is the key points. The second one is, China, we for standardization and certification, we have the government relevant law, regulation, and even monetary standards to give us relevant related requirements. So we must keep and follow those kind of law, regulation, and monetary standards to do our certification activities. Especially we need to closely to cooperate with China National Certification and Accreditation Bureau, we call CNCA, because they are in charge of these affairs in China. We need to know what they request, what they want, and we try to synergy with their requirements. That will be better. We have a strong opportunity to do the relevant work. The third one is the big challenge is how to encourage the big company and the brand enterprises. They join our certification schemes. For example, we promote the sustainable agriculture certification program in China, like Unilever, like Coca-Cola, this kind of international enterprises company. They accept our certification schemes. And then we can promote related certification schemes to like tea farms and the tea manufacturers. So if the tea manufacturer cannot all this one, and this is international group will not adopt their products. So this is the key point. If we can encourage the big company, the brand company, to adopt our carbon-related certification schemes, they can push the supplier chain to adopt the standards too. So I think CSCA need to work with Carbon Trust closely to get in touch with the key and the big enterprises and company to persuade them, to encourage them to adopt our certification schemes. So those 3 points, I think, the key challenge for us to promote our certification schemes in China. Li Jian.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Li. And thank you for all the panelists. Due to the time limit, that I think we need to wrap up this session. And thank you again for your excellent sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.